Gun violence continues to be one of the thorniest issues in our community. It's one I take very personally. It breaks up families and communities, and it makes all of us feel unsafe. Every time we read about a shooting, don't you just feel a little less safe? I know I do. And so we've prioritized both law enforcement and non-law enforcement interventions to gun violence. And as mayor and police commissioner, I have often visited the scenes of where this violence has taken place. They're devastating. They're devastating. It's not just what you are seeing in terms of the aftermath of a violent personal crime, but oftentimes you have friends, you have family members, you have witnesses, you have a lot of people in that space grieving and expressing various emotions all at once. It is not something that I will ever forget. I also meet with families dealing with the aftermath of gun violence. And these are tough meetings. I always offer it. Not all families take me up on it. And that's completely fair. It's up to them and where they are in their own healing process. But a lot of people do take me up on it. And I can tell you there's a lot of tears. There is a lot of anger. There is a lot of frustration, an overwhelming sense of loss. But they almost always end with us all embracing each other. And it's a really powerful experience to begin that process of recovery with families. And while they're tough meetings, I actually feel really privileged that those families let me into that space so that I could hear them reflect their grief and help them with their recovery. We've had too many stories of promising young people whose lives have been cut short by violence. That's why on the Police Bureau, we approved the Focus Intervention Team to intervene and stop gun violence. That's why we created the Enhanced Community Safety Team to ensure that every single shooting in our city got the investigative support that was required. Outside the Police Bureau, we created the Office of Violence Prevention and the Ceasefire Program. These are programs that actually go out and meet with people, sometimes right after they've been shot in the hospital. The purpose being to bring credible interveners, read people who've been down this path before personally, to help stop retaliatory shootings, to help family members cope with whatever the grief is they're experiencing and the anger, and connect them to whatever services they need so that we break up these cycles of violence. And then I'm just going to say this, folks, there's not everything. Government can't do it all. We are seeing too many cases, and dudes, I'm talking to you right now, too many cases where men, because that's who's doing this, where men are resolving petty conflicts with firearms. And we just had this ridiculous situation where two dads are going to the school pickup line, and they got over some dispute over, apparently, I guess, who was first in the pickup line. And shots were fired. And somebody was shot. And then in Gresham, and I realize it's not part of our statistics, but in Gresham, somebody's car stereo was allegedly a little bit too loud. So they had a shootout? We need to learn to resolve conflict in ways that are not so violent. Accountability matters too, and I hear from a lot of people, they say, look, I like the cops, but they have the ability to use lethal force. We need some accountability. For decades, we dithered around on body-worn cameras. I said on my first day, before I leave, police officers in this city will have body-worn cameras, and they do now. And that's all the way from the new sworn in all the way up to the police chief. Anybody who intervenes with the public will have a body-worn camera. And I also just want to take this moment to thank the police chiefs I've been really fortunate. The most important appointments you will ever make as mayor are police chief and city administrator. I have both that make me very proud. I have Michael Jordan right here after a successful basketball career. And we have Bob Day. And I also want to thank Chuck Lavelle, who stood up a lot of these anti-violence programs and continues to do an outstanding job of leading in our community. Homelessness. Just one point I want to make here, because you read about it each and every day. You don't need to hear me. except to say that the reason there's a conflict between the city and the county is we have different roles to play. At the city, we're responsible for public safety. We're responsible for maintaining public right-of-ways. We're responsible for ADA access because it's the right thing to do, and we're under a settlement agreement with the ADA community to keep sidewalks clear for people with disabilities. And of course, we maintain parks and natural area infrastructure too. So we have that law enforcement and that clean up the mess obligation. On the other hand, the county is a social services organization at heart and in its culture. They are the public health authority. They are the mental health authority. They provide substance use addiction treatment, and they already have navigation to housing that can be reserved for people in shelter. We have to work together. We have to figure it out. We have to sort it out. And after 18 months of negotiating between the city and the county, we created the first of its kind comprehensive homeless response action plan. And it was approved by the City Council just a little over 100 days ago. It has a clear, and I think somewhat audacious goal, that we will reduce unsheltered street camping on the streets of Portland by 50% by the end of 2025. But rather than just throwing out an audacious goal, it also comes with over 100 specific actionable strategies that must go into place, must be implemented in order to be able to achieve that somewhat audacious goal. And I can tell you today, we are already implementing a lot of the programs. And it took us a long time to get where we are. I was pleased, Chair Vega Peterson, to see the county really stepping up. For the first time, the county is overtly saying they will work with the city on emergency shelter. They're looking at ways with their partners in the community to rethink the way mental health services are delivered at the street level. They're committing to invest more in affordable housing that can help move this population off the street. These are all really important, and it's a radical shift in the way that we look at this. But it wasn't always thus. And Chair Vega Peterson was not always the chair. And in the early days of my administration, and you don't want to hear excuses, and I'm not going to give it, but we had to do a lot of this on our own because we were acting with urgency, and the state and the county weren't with us, and we couldn't stop and wait for them to catch up. So we did a lot of things that the city had never done before. For example, I established the city's outreach team. This is a group of people who go out into the community and they connect people to shelter and services. And this is a very successful program. Just since July, 500 people have accepted shelter referrals from our outreach workers. That's 500 people who were on the street who aren't now. We even created our own shelter network, and this was a completely new model for the city of Portland and for the state of Oregon. The task sites were much larger than anything we'd done previously in our community, and we didn't have uniform navigation to services. A shelter is just a shelter for a chronically homeless individual if it doesn't also have services. And the whole point isn't just to get people to live in a shelter. The point is to get them into the shelter, connect them with services, then navigate them to housing that's reserved for that population. So they're off the streets and they can reclaim their lives, move on with their lives, and not be one of our statistics. And so what we did is every single person who comes into one of those sites today is navigated to services. Drug addiction, mental health services, job training services, domestic violence survivorship services, housing, whatever they need to get off and stay off the streets. And thanks to the work of others like Dan Ryan and the SRVs, we're now going back. We're retooling the SRVs. We're connecting them to the navigation of services. We're expanding some of the sites like Reedway, as well as Multnomah Village. And I feel really good about where we are today because it contrasts with what I walked into in 2017 when the city of Portland did not directly operate even one emergency shelter bed. As of June of 2022, we went from 0 to now operating 9 city shelters, including large-scale task sites. And folks, I am pleased to announce that next Monday we will officially open our 10th large-scale shelter site on North Portland Road, which will offer 70 RV spots as well as 90 sleeping pods. So what this means is in just over a 2-year period, the City of Portland has opened 868 sleeping units, all of which are connecting people to services they need for whatever their specific suite of issues may be. And we have navigated we've navigated 500 people off the streets and into housing. Livability, I'll just be really quick here, but believe it or not, when I took office, there was no program at the city that we didn't clean up litter, graffiti, biohazards, or unsanctioned campsites to any great degree. Before the pandemic, we had an IRP, impact reduction program. It cleaned up about 200 problematic campsites each and every month, but now we clean up 4 times that, over 800 times. And last year, we collected a record 192% increase in stuff on from those camps. I also created the Public Environmental Management Office, PEMO, from scratch in May of 2022. It does things like lighting up city blocks. We've lit up 75 city blocks, 1,000 different trees, many of our parks. We've sponsored over 20 murals. People think it's beautiful. They think it's art. It's public safety because it lights up areas that have historically been problematic. PEMO also gives the public an opportunity to engage with city staffers to help resolve problems through our problem solver meetings. They take place in virtually every corner of this city. They happen every 2 weeks. If you want to be in one and you're not, please do. Those are run out of PEMO. We've cleaned 15 football fields of graffiti just since 2022. And colleagues, I'm really proud of the work that we did on the City Council to lobby the state to finally fully fund ODOT so that they would clean up the public right-of-ways through Portland, including I-84, I-5, I-205, and I-405 and US 26. And that is happening, and I believe we have the governor's commitment to continue that. One of the proudest legacies of my administration, I believe, will be Portland Solutions. We're bringing all of these different programs, our livability programs, our lighting programs, our activation programs, our problematic homes, campsite cleanup programs, bringing them under one umbrella. It's called Portland Solutions. Skylar, where did Skylar go? There she is running it all. That program is now under the city administrator. It is no longer in my office. It's now part of the executive branch, and I hope the future mayor and city council will continue to support it because it's hugely successful. Economic development, Andrew, you and your chamber have helped lead this area. We're looking at everything, of course, related to homelessness, safety, and livability issues that are critical, but we've also leaned into addressing taxes, rates, and fees that businesses and households play. My colleagues have worked really, really hard to streamline the permitting process that we've heard a lot about from our business partners. Small businesses were feeling like they didn't have a direct inroad to city government, so we created the Office of Small Business. We all know that activations are key to our city's recovery. We already know what the Blues Fest and the Winter Lights Festival can do, but there's lots of activations that we can engage in and support and expand, and that's why we created an activities office as well, an events office. On the incentive front, we created TIF districts, enterprise zones, new business incentives to encourage people to re-sign leases or sign new ones. And all of this has shown significant improvement. Did you know, for example, that the rate of new business openings in Portland increased 16% last year? It's gone up. And I'd like to acknowledge businesses that expanded or grew. Polka, Daimler Truck, Legit Script, which signed a new lease in Big Pink, Soho House, and of course, the Ritz-Carlton. And this summer, we have seen that travel and tourism is way up too. In fact, we had the highest hotel occupancy rates this summer since 2019. So I think what I'll do is just wrap it up there, but I want to mention one other thing. Sports. Remember my joke about sports? Sports is critically important to activating this city, and you already know it from our established teams, and I was really proud to stand with the WNBA commissioner and the Batal family as they announced a new Portland WNBA franchise, and I am excited to say that we are also going to formalize our commitment with Major League Baseball and the Portland Diamond Project, and I saw Craig over here somewhere. These sports franchises can bring billions of dollars into our community. And so next week, I'm asking the City Council to approve a resolution that commits the city to partner with the Portland Diamond Project and other partners to move this project forward. This will be the first time in the process where the City Council has actually formally supported MLB. It's an important step. It's something that the MLB Commissioner is explicitly looking for. There's been a tremendous amount of forward momentum, and I want to thank Craig and Jennifer and their team for all the hard work that they've put into this. We're with you every step of the way. We want to keep it moving, and I look forward to watching other people throw the first pitch in a new Portland-based MLB team's stadium. So these are just a few of the things that we've been working on, and again, you heard what we are doing. On top of it all, we're creating a new form of government. Thank you, voters of Portland, who in 2022 decided we needed to do more. We weren't busy enough. And so we are completely restructuring our form of government. We've created a new executive branch. We hired Michael as the interim city manager. We have city administrator. We have deputy city administrators. I took back all of the bureaus on July 1st. They are now being uniformly managed. On the executive side, we've actually created a lot of forward momentum. On the legislative side, we created 4 legislative districts. We are now implementing a ranked choice voting system. And on top of it all, we are completely renovating Portland City Hall to accommodate the larger offices and the larger council. And I fully expect City Hall to be open and operational by January 1st. It will be on time and it will be on budget. We demanded the same things for the Portland building when we did that renovation. It was on budget, on time. Thank you, Tom Reinhardt, wherever you are, for successfully managing that program. And on January 1st, I look forward to tossing the keys across the table to a highly ambitious, engaged, and passionate group of leaders who will take the ball and run with it, with our new form of government into this exciting new future, and I'm fully confident that the transition will be seamless. As I envision this future for Portland, I got to tell you this, my hopes are anchored in the incredible potential of this city. You know our reputation is on the line. The media outlets call Portland, and these are direct quotes, dirty, run down. One hilariously even describes Portland as destroyed. Donald Trump recently described Portland as a burned out hulk of a city. What I hope you take from this today is that we're making good progress. The negatives aren't true. Portland is on its way back. We can't let the naysayers control the narrative. We have to tell our own story. And so what I hope happens as we move forward with this new government, new people, new personalities, is we turn the narrative and start talking about the positive things that are happening in this community. I want to close by expressing my deepest gratitude to all who have collaborated with me, our dedicated city staff, community leaders, every resident who's played an important role in this journey. I especially want to thank my colleagues on the Portland City Council. There's nothing that I mentioned today that was done in a vacuum. There's nothing that I mentioned today that I or even my staff could have done independently of this City Council pulling in the same direction, and I'm really appreciative of this opportunity to work with all of you. I'm looking forward to passing the gavel. My life will always be connected to Portland's future. I will remain deeply invested in its success. Let us move forward with hope, determination, and a shared vision for a prosperous Portland.